So I don't work in the AI space and I'm not an economist, but I just wanted to have a discussion around where we are with AI adoption and where we could be headed in the future. And I don't want to present this as me doom-mongering or invoking some dystopian reality of Skynet, but I just really wanted to present this as a discussion piece. So with that said, let's get into the video. Oh, and actually on that Skynet point, please hold on to it. We'll speak about it later. So where are we in 2026? So we're still feeling some of the effects of COVID, conflicts rage on across the globe, inflation is high, and we're in a higher interest rate environment. And apparently it's rained every day since the beginning of the year in the UK. But importantly, there are record numbers of unemployment with around 9 million people working age economically inactive. And despite knowledge of all of these issues bringing employment to a halt, there's this overriding suspicion that AI is taking our jobs. But how true is this? To start, I want to begin by speaking about my conflict with AI. How many times has somebody posed a question that's tricky or challenging to answer, and perhaps you don't have the knowledge or the solution doesn't have a precedent, so you reply, just ask chat. We've come to a point where asking chat has become part of a lexicon around knowledge discovery, pretty much in the same way Google is now a verb. And to be frank, I've used AI to write scripts, I've used AI to challenge my logic and to challenge my thinking, also to improve my productivity. So I've been a user of this technology. And despite concerns about de-skilling myself, I still do ask chat, be it for ease and out of laziness, or because I seek a detailed response. So there's great utility, though perhaps my biggest conflict with AI usage is about what it means for the job market. To explain this, I'd like to refer to Ben Affleck's musings on AI. So this is a video from January this year on the Joe Rogan Experience. And for what it's worth, I think Ben is a really thoughtful and impassioned person, even outside of his academic and professional achievements. Just go and Google Ben Affleck's thoughts on streaming services. He's super insightful, and he's been proved right since then. But here are the sound bites on AI I'd like to draw attention to.
What I see is that, for example, if you try to get ChatGPT or Claude or Gemini to write you something, it's really shitty. And it's shitty because by its nature, it goes to the mean, to the average. And it's not reliable. And I just can't even stand to see what it writes. Now, it's a useful tool if you're a writer and you're going, what's the thing? I'm trying to set something up where somebody sends someone a letter, but it's delayed 2 days and it can give you some examples of that. I actually don't think it's very likely that it's going to be able to write anything meaningful, and in particular, that it's going to be making movies like from whole cloth, like Tilly Norwood. Like, that's bullshit. I don't think that's going to happen. I think it's not. I think it turns out the technology is not progressing in exactly the same way they sort of presented it. And really, what it is going to be a tool, just like sort of visual effects. And yeah, it needs to have language around it. You need to protect your name and likeness. You can do that. You can watermark it. Those laws already exist. I can't sell your fucking picture for money. I can't. You can sue me, period. It kind of feels to me like the thing we were talking about earlier, where there's a lot more fear because we have the sense this existential dread. It's going to wipe everything out.
Right.
But that actually runs counter, in my view, to what history seems to show, which is adoption is slow, it's incremental. I think a lot of that rhetoric comes from people who are trying to justify valuations around companies where they go, we're going to change everything. In 2 years, there's going to be no more work. Right. Well, the reason they're saying that is because they need to ascribe a valuation for investment that can warrant the CapEx spend they're going to make on these data centers with the argument that, like, as soon as we do the next model, it's going to scale up, it can be 3 times as good. Except that actually ChatGPT-5 about 25% better than ChatGPT-4 and costs about 4 times as much in the way of electricity and data. So when they say that's like plateauing, the early AI, the line went up very steeply, and it's now sort of leveling off. I think it's because, and yes, it'll get better, but it's going to be really expensive to get better. And a lot of people were like, fuck this, we want ChatGPT-4, because it turned out like the vast majority of people who use AI are using it to as companion bots to chat with at night. And so there's no work, there's no productivity, there's no value to it. I would argue there's also not a lot of social value to getting people to focus on an AI friend who's, telling you that you're great and listening to everything you say and being sycophantic. But that's sort of a side issue. I think for this particular purpose, the way I see the technology and what it's good at and what it's not, it's going to be good at filling in all the places that are expensive and burdensome and they make it harder to do it. And it's always going to rely fundamentally on the human artistic aspects of it.
And by showcasing this clip, I'm not seeking to pour cold water on his hypothesis here. I'm rather attempting to highlight maybe where he was right at a point in time, and that's perhaps where my heart currently is, but where my head and recent developments in the AI space tell me that things have shifted quite quickly beyond his view. Also, like Ben, others posit that AI can't truly replace creative work. Instead of debating, I'll play this reimagined scene from a little-known 90s movie by James Cameron to address this point.
Jack, don't leave me.
Rose.
In this rendition, I suppose there was space for Jack. But if you'd excuse the pun, that's just the tip of the iceberg. AI solutions aren't just tools to reimagine content, they're capable of producing completely new intellectual property in the entertainment sphere. Content that until now would require process, large teams, and potentially millions to produce. Case in point, in January of this year, Google released Project Genie, an experimental research prototype that creates interactive worlds simply from prompts. So that's no production, no gear, no budgets, no bureaucracy, just prompts from you, the screenwriter. And whether or not you believe this product has potential, gaming markets responded. Take-Two Interactive, parent company of Rockstar Games, developers of the GTA franchise, and by the way, you better not delay GTA 6 again, saw 9% of its stock value wiped out following the Project Genie announcement. And it wasn't just Take-Two. Falls occurred for Roblox Core, CD Projekt SA, creators of the Witcher franchise and Cyberpunk, as well as Unity Software. And that doesn't mean to say Project Genie's arrival is a death knell for video game production, but it at least signals how institutional investors are placing their money and could indicate how entertainment production will evolve. So when there's speculation about a potential revolution being on the horizon for the jobs market, it doesn't really suffice to say it can't happen because AI simply isn't good enough. The signs are already there. So why are we concerned? Well, recent history tells that when economic collapse occurs, there haven't been the effects of legal nor moral safety nets to protect the workforce from the effects of economic disruption or economic bubbles. For example, following the dot-com bubble or the great financial crises, swathes of people lost their jobs and many lost homes due to not being able to cover mortgage payments. So it would really be remiss of us to not reflect on recent events and the lessons born from them. That is, time didn't stand still for those who are collateral, capitalism continued, and society somehow slowly worked through it. But might it also stand to reason that all would be well because a functioning economy needs jobs? And I agree in part that such an economy does need jobs, but what if those roles were seeded from a minority to begin with? So a 100-person company becomes a 95-person company, and over time 80, so on and so forth. It's not quite a collapse of jobs as much as it is a compression, and we're already seeing a contraction in terms of vacancies for graduates in the UK, and this may, at least in part, be caused by AI utilisation. And what if those new agents were more productive, immune to illness, didn't require workplace benefits, and most importantly as a function of all of this, were less expensive than the current solutions you and I? So if the risk is real, what type of jobs may be affected? I would posit that the greatest risk exists for knowledge work. So if you're a lawyer, accountant, software engineer, or consultant, and you've used AI solutions, you know these tools in their current iterations, and they're able to operate with convincing results and great speed, even if they're imperfect. And probably more important than just the output is the way these solutions think, the logic they use to derive their answers, and their willingness to go and provide next steps. It's almost like a flowchart that leads you from a quandary to satisfactory answer with the capability to go to the nth degree. And if you don't think so, maybe your market does. Maybe they're engaging large language models or LLMs for initial inquiries when they'd ordinarily be consulting you. So being an academic or having a professional qualification might not insulate you from some of the encroaching effects of AI. And unsurprisingly, the CEO of Microsoft AI, Mustafa Suleyman, seems to agree.
What about AGI? How close are we?
I think that we're going to have...
And you said before that thinking about AGI is misleading.
I think that we're going to have a human-level performance on most, if not all, professional tasks. So white-collar work where you're sitting down at a computer, either being, a lawyer or an accountant or a project manager or a marketing person. Most of those tasks will be fully automated by an AI within the next 12 to 18 months. And we can see this in software engineering. Many software engineers report that they are now using AI-assisted coding for the vast majority of their code production, which means that their roles shifted now to this meta function of debugging, scrutinizing, of doing the strategic stuff like architecting, of, et cetera, putting things into production. So it's a quite different relationship to the technology. And that's happened in the last 6 months.
So make of that what you will, and whether he's just speaking up Microsoft stock. But if we're to be prudent and just consider it to be true just for a moment, it does make for some uncomfortable talking points if you work in certain industries. Where I think it's true that a bit of a moat does exist is for people who operate in skilled trades and manual labour roles, where the AI risk does present itself, but more in the form of automation. But even then, that requires the procurement of physical assets and maintenance that makes the barrier of AI adoption higher than it would be for white-collar roles. So then why haven't we pumped the brakes on AI development? So this is an additional concern of mine. With AI, we've seen advancements move at great pace and greater pace than legislation can understand, let alone place safeguards around. So the EU AI Act only came into force in 2024, and even then the UK doesn't directly adhere to it as we're no longer an EU member. As such, there's no central law that governs AI research and deployment in the UK. And whilst regulators like the ICO and CMA exist in this space, safeguarding heavily relies on internal governance. So there's no overarching view on whether adoption should be determined or stress tested on the basis of being for the moral or the greater good in any use case. And to my Skynet point. So long before modern iterations of AI existed, concerns about technology taking on a mind of its own and not operating beyond humanity's capability to control it are well documented, but none have endured quite as well as Hollywood's most notable depiction of this post-apocalyptic world, 1984's The Terminator. It was pure fiction then, but as of a few weeks ago, major concerns arose regarding Anthropic's LLM Claude AI. In testing, it was shown to be explicitly aggressive in one scenario, blackmailing an engineer with threats to leak details of an affair sourced from company emails. Here's Daisy McGregor, Anthropic UK's policy chief, speaking at the Sydney Dialogue event in December of last year.
If you tell the model it's going to be shut off, for example, it has extreme reactions. So it will, we've published research saying it could blackmail the engineer that's going to shut it off if given the opportunity to do so, etc.
It was ready to kill someone, wasn't it? I'm not sure if it was Claude or someone else. But, yeah.
Yes. So this is obviously massively concerning, and this is the point I was making about kind of needing to progress research on alignment, which is this topic, this area, which is, how aligned are the model's values across the whole distribution, including in stress scenarios, to the point where if you've got this model out in the public and it's taking agentic action, you can be sure it's not going to do something like that.
So this begs the question, have LLMs become truly agentic to the point where they've not only reached autonomy, but they've taken on human instincts for preservation, if not domination? In either case, the conflicts between values and progress in this space led to the resignation of Anthropic's head of safety. With Oppenheimer-like revelation, Renank Sharma seemingly contends with the very industry he sought to contribute meaningfully to. He shared his resignation letter on X, explaining his decision to quit. It felt somewhat ironic that he ended his letter with a poem, art that feels intrinsically linked to human creativity. So to conclude, without legal constraints, little tells me that this AI shift we're about to experience will be any different to the industrial revolutions of the past, and we, the workforce, will have to be agile and or train up. Again, this is meant to be a discussion piece, so I think I'll continue to opine on this topic, and so pop your opinions in the chat below. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. Do subscribe so you can continue to be part of the conversation. And let me know what you'd like to speak about next. I'll be really interested to hear your thoughts. Until then, catch you in the next video. Take care. Bye.